I used to be shy. It was one of the most obvious characteristics I had, but I'm definitely not shy anymore. And I'll tell you how I did it. The first insight, I think, was from a book called The Charisma Quotient by Ronald Riggio. I learned something really valuable in that book. The book is based on quite a bit of research. He basically found that charisma is not a mysterious, indefinable character trait, but a set of 6 skills. I'm going to list 7 skills. I broke one of them into 2. But here's the 7 skills that charismatic people have. 1, reading emotion. 2, transmitting emotion. 3, hiding emotion selectively. 4, noticing social subtleties. 5, knowing social rules. 6, role flexibility. And 7, verbal expression. So these are skills. And if you're shy, you actually already have some of them. You're probably really good at reading emotion. You're probably really good at noticing social subtleties. And the only problem with being high on those and not being high on the other ones is that it makes for a negative feedback loop in interactions with people. So if you're really good at reading people and you know what emotions they're feeling, then you can tell when they can tell that you're uncomfortable. So if you don't know how to behave, if you don't know social rules, you're not socially competent, then, and you're also at the same time socially sensitive, aware of the cues people are giving you, and aware that they feel uncomfortable around you, then you can easily get into a negative feedback loop where you feel awkward because you don't know what to do. They feel awkward because you are obviously uncomfortable. And then you can read their discomfort, and it makes you even more uncomfortable. Then you just want to get away. So the obvious solution to that is social competence. I suggest you start with Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's got basic principles about how to deal with people, social competence. Now, I've got some good news for you. Because you're already socially sensitive, you're aware of the emotions on other people and you can read them well, once you have social skills, you can actually become very charismatic. More so than somebody who's unable to read those cues or is not very good at it. Most people that we consider very charismatic had that characteristic. They were shy to begin with, like Gandhi, John F. Kennedy. People like that were shy in the beginning, then learned social skills and learned how to speak in public or just to speak to people. And they became very charismatic because they already had that being able to read people really well. So that's the first thing I did that really made a difference in my shyness is I read How to Win Friends and Influence People and tried to apply the principles in that book. And I just started paying attention to the rules of behavior and figured out how to interact with people in a way that was enjoyable to them. So it put them at ease. I started focusing on making them feel comfortable and enjoy the interaction. And when I did, it took the attention off me, gave me good feedback from them, and it was a positive feedback loop. So that's the first place to try to make this different for yourself. Learn social skills. And you can do that in gradient. You can do that in a gradual increase. As a matter of fact, one of the best things I ever did was take the Dale Carnegie course in public speaking, which, sounds like, oh my God, that would be such a scary thing. But the way they do it is not at all scary. They do it very gradually. First, you get up in front of the class with 3 other people and you're sitting on a table in the front of the class and the teacher just asks you questions like, did you grow up around here? Where did you go to school? Whatever. Just casual questions about that you can easily answer, right? So that's not hard. And they just slowly make it more and more challenging, but you've already become comfortable with the previous level. And so all the way along, it's very, very comfortable. And this is somebody that hated and feared public speaking And by the end of it, I actually loved public speaking, strangely enough. And also, one of the things that they did that I thought was really brilliant is they used the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, as topics for your speeches. So you would read one of the chapters, one of the principles, and then you would do a little 2-minute speech on it. And so at the same time that you're learning to speak in public, you're also learning social skills. So that's probably the single best thing I ever did to reduce my shyness. But you can do something that doesn't cost that much. I mean, I recommend it if you got the money, if you can do it. I saved up my money for months to do that, and it was totally worth it. But you can do it even if you can't do that. You can get the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's really easily available. You can get a very cheap copy of it if you don't have a lot of money. And you can also join a Toastmasters club, which doesn't cost anything. And they're everywhere. Every town and city has Toastmasters clubs. And this is just a group of people that are getting together to learn how to speak in public. It's not as carefully graduated in its, increasing the challenge of it. But you can do it in a more graduated way. They have, at the meetings, they have, weekly meetings, and they'll do, a thing called table topics. And it's somebody pulls a topic out of a hat, and somebody stands up and talks for 1 minute about it. It's pretty casual, pretty easy to do. And everybody there is in the same boat as you. And they're all trying to get over it. So they're all super supportive. So that's one way to go also. And of course, another thing that always helps is more interaction with people, especially while you're learning about human relations. It really matters. The more you do something, the better you get at it if you're actually trying to practice something. I remember reading about one study that showed that the difference between extroverts and introverts or shy people was, and not that those are the same thing, but was that introverts and shy people have a tendency to not pay attention to the rewards of social interaction. They get the same rewards as extroverts do, but the extroverts are very aware of the rewards of social interaction, and introverts and shy people don't pay attention to them. So that would be another thing that you could do, is have more social interactions, and at the same time pay attention to what it is that you enjoy about it, because that will change how much you want to do it. One of the things I recommend is that you just become good at casual conversation, just chit chat with people. That's the way relationships begin. I know it's superficial. I know it seems shallow, but that's how relationships get started. You have to start somewhere, and you don't start in the deep end. So get good at just casual chit chat with people, conversation. And you can get good at this. You actually have some of the skills already that would make you good at this. So one of the things they do, and as a matter of fact, in the Dale Carnegie course, is you can go to the introductory evening, the first class of I think it's 14 weeks, and they would teach you a really basic, really good way of just talking with people casually. Questions to ask people, because that's the best way to talk to people, is to just casually talk to them about their own life. It's like, where you're from, what are your hobbies, just whatever. There's casual questions about their life, and they'll say something, and then they'll probably ask you about yours, and that's an easy question to answer. That's how you get to know people. It's just basic, right? And they had this little visualization that you can do. You visualize a house with people hanging out the window. And this is just to remind you, that's the first place to start. Where are you from? Do you live around here? You got family around here? So that's the people sticking out the window. Oh, really? Where's your family from? That kind of stuff. So family, and then out the chimney at the top of the house is a work glove, like a hand in a work glove sticking out the chimney. So that represents work. What do you do for a living? It's always a good question to ask. And the hand in the work glove is holding a plane, which represents travel. So you're like, have you traveled much? That kind of stuff. On the wing of the plane is a hobby horse, which I didn't know what that was, but it's apparently it's like a toy or something. I don't know what it is, but I actually don't know what it is. I should probably look it up. But anyway, I remember the phrase hobby horse, and I think it's like a rocking horse that kids have. Um, so at least that's what I envision. So that's ask them about their hobbies or what they do. And also sitting on top of the hobby horse is a tennis racket. So it's, ask them about their hobbies and what they do for sports, or did they do sports in school and that stuff, that kind of stuff. So that just gets the conversation going. And pretty soon you find that you have a mutual interest and you're off and running. Oh, you like gardening too? I love my garden. I'm working it all the time. I love to grow roses. Oh, really? I love roses too. You know what I mean? You find a common ground and a common interest, and that really helps make a connection. Or you're from the same place, or you went to the same school, or there's a lot of places along the way where you can find a connection with somebody. Another thing I did that helped me get used to and get good at casual conversation was I would prepare things. So I knew I was going to go to work and I was going to talk to my fellow workers. People just, they want casual chit chat. It's like the social lubricant. It makes everything flow well. People, ask you about what's going on with you, and you ask them about what's going on with them. And that's part of connecting with people, right? So I would prepare things though. I would, for example, I like to read a lot, obviously. Anybody that's listened to these podcasts knows I love to read. And so I would always, when I would find something that I thought was particularly interesting, a short thing that I could easily share, I would remember it. And sometimes even write it down and put it in my pocket so I would remember it later. And then, when people are saying, hey, what's going on with you? Anything new or whatever? You say, well, I read this thing last night that I thought was really interesting. And I would share it with them, right? And for a while, I also did jokes. Like I would find good jokes and then write them down and have them in my pocket. And then I'd read them right before I went to work and stuff like that. So, it's just whatever you do that you enjoy doing, that makes it easy for you, whatever you like to talk about. You could prepare a little bit ahead of time. You don't have to have, I wasn't doing like memorized speeches, and I don't recommend you ever memorize a speech or anything really. I mean, obviously there are places to memorize things, but I mean, for this purpose, memorization is probably not the best way to go, but just remember it and then just spit it out when you're talking to them. And it makes it gives you something to talk about. Like people just want to interact with you, and this gives them something to interact with, right? It gives them something interesting to say, oh yeah, I read the same thing, or or I heard about that, but I didn't know this or whatever. You get to talking about it, right? And as you get to know people, of course, you get to know what their interests are, and you can tailor what you do better to individual people that you're going to interact with. And the same with people in your family. Most shy people, I don't think, have really a problem with people in their family. They don't really feel shy around their family. But this is for everybody else, basically. The last thing I'm going to suggest to you, and I think it made a huge difference to me, is cardio exercise or aerobic exercise, where you're exercising in some prolonged way, some sustained way. So anything that gets your heart going into what they call an aerobic range. You're not like totally out of breath, but you're breathing pretty good and you're warm and you're working out, right? You're getting some exercise, and it just a running or biking or getting on an elliptical or a treadmill or something, and doing it for like 20 minutes, half hour, 2-3 times a week really makes a difference. It really changes your body's biochemistry and lowers your stress level. Another thing you could do also would be, meditation also can lower your stress level, your stress hormone level in your body. That's one of the reasons people do it, because it lowers your stress hormone level in your body. So anything you can do physically that lowers your general physiological arousal, so you're just less high strung to begin with, is a good thing. So if you drink a lot of coffee, for example, you can lower that, so you're not quite so jacked. I've often thought of this as just having overactive adrenal glands. I don't know if that's true, but it does feel like I get more jacked up than other people do at the same circumstances, so maybe I just, I have unusually large adrenal glands, and so they inject me with more adrenaline than other people. I don't know how it works, but anyway, anything that I've done that lowers my general arousal, physiological arousal level, has been helpful in getting over shyness. Now I don't really worry about that. I feel socially competent, and I don't, I still get a little nervous sometimes under certain circumstances, and that's just normal. So another thing you can do is just change the way you think about it. Use that nervousness in some way. Like I did that with public speaking, and it was probably one of the most useful things I did. Because after I took the Dale Carnegie course, then I joined Toastmasters. I joined 4 Toastmasters clubs so I could speak more often. And because you don't get to speak necessarily at every meeting, because it depends on how many people are in the actual club. But sometimes you have to skip a week before you even get a chance to speak. And I was in a hurry, so I joined 4 Toastmasters clubs. And then I decided that I wanted the real thing. So I had published a book, my first book, and I wanted to promote it. So I wanted to actually start speaking to groups as a way of promoting my book. So I started calling up Kiwanis clubs and Rotary clubs and asking them if they wanted a speaker. So they often have speakers at their meetings, speak for like 20 minutes. And so I found that it took about 7 calls before I would get one speaking engagement. And so I just made 14 calls a week, and I spoke twice a week, and I found that I got nervous when I thought about it. Like, say I had a speech tomorrow or the next day, and whenever I thought about it, I would get this little jolt of adrenaline, right? And so I thought, well, this is, at first I was just resisting it. Like I wish I didn't have this jolt of adrenaline, I should have gotten over this by now or whatever, I was doing stupid stuff. But then the best thing I did was I started using that jolt of adrenaline. So I decided I would affirm something. You can read my book, Slotrology. It's about using this. It's about using, I call them slotras, kind of like somewhere between a mantra and a slogan. Some phrase that you use, that you say, that you repeat to yourself. It's kind of like you're learning to think that thing, whatever it is. You can work it out. It takes some time to really work out just the right phrase, and then you practice thinking that thing until it becomes a natural thing to think. Anyway, I'm going to do a podcast on that book because it's an important concept. But what you can do is you can use your jolt of adrenaline, whatever it is. If you get nervous, you're going to go to work and you're going to have to talk to people, and you get this little jolt of adrenaline, do something with it. Use it. Don't resist it. Embrace it and use it. So what I did was I was, like when I was speaking a lot, I would think about the upcoming speech 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times a day, right? I'd get this little rush, this little jolt of adrenaline, and I started using it. So the phrase I eventually worked out, I started out with a whole bunch of them, and I just slowly eliminated the ones that didn't do anything for me and picked the one that had the best effect on me, and that was, I'm going to make them get how important this is, right? It kind of uses the energy of the jolt to affirm something and to affirm a focus and a purpose. So I was talking about optimism in these speeches. And a lot of times, people were listening like they were watching a movie. They would be sort of casually paying attention like I was an entertainment. And I wanted them to really get how this could change their life. So, and I really wanted that, right? It was a strong purpose of mine. So it helped to affirm that purpose, and it allowed me to affirm it. It's almost like the adrenaline jolt I got was a reminder to assert that again, to focus on that again. So that's something that you can do, is use your little jolts of adrenaline for good. Don't resist them. Find a way to use them. So that would be my final piece of advice. If you have any questions, you can write to me at adamleekahn@mail.com. Write to me, ask me any questions, or leave a comment, and I will answer you. It's an important thing to get over. And I understand why you think of it as a problem, but you actually have a leg up over a lot of people. The fact that you're emotionally sensitive, that you can read other people, is a big advantage. And then once you learn some people skills, you will be a force to be reckoned with. I wish you the best of luck. This is Adam Lee Kahn on The Atom Bomb. This Atom Bomb podcast episode is sponsored by Anchor, a podcast platform, the one I'm using to make this podcast. It's super easy to use and allows you to easily create your own podcast. You can record and edit your audio right onto the app. In fact, you can do everything on your phone. Anchor also makes it easy to monetize your podcast and get wide distribution. Anchor automatically makes your podcast available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. You can download the Anchor app for free or go to anchor.fm to get started.